Hi, I'm Amy Trigg, and you are listening to the Ryan's Musical Rambles podcast.
Hello and welcome to episode 3 of Ryan's Musical Rambles. Coming up this week, I am talking to the incredible Amy Trigg. Amy is a wheelchair user, actress and writer that has played roles on both stage and screen, as well as writing some incredible plays and TV show episode scripts. Coming up this week, we are talking about the challenges that go into drama school as a wheelchair user, what it was like being involved in the little big things, and the importance of filmed theatre. I hope you enjoy my chat with the wonderful Amy Trigg. Also, just as a little disclaimer, there is a little bit of background noise coming from Amy's microphone, but it's nothing too distracting. And she really did give an incredible interview, and it was one of my favourite chats I've had as part of this podcast, so I really do hope you enjoy it. I started my chat with Amy by asking her, where did it all begin for her?
Oh, for me, big question. I mean, I've always loved theatre and creative stuff ever since I was little, like putting on shows for my parents and family and everything. So I always knew I was interested in that. But I must admit, when I was growing up, I think I knew I wanted to be an actor. I was really interested in writing and loved writing, but never felt smart enough. But I also just explored every possible avenue, like directing, stage management, stage makeup, like I'm probably forgetting things, but I just wanted to be involved in some way, and I wasn't quite sure whether there was a clear path for me into the industry, so I thought it was maybe a bit of a safety blanket by exploring different avenues at that point, in case I suddenly got a big no down the line. I would be prepared to be multifaceted. But then I got into Amdram when I was, 15 maybe. I think that was my first Amdram show. And yeah, just fell in love with it and thought, well, I'll give it as much of a go as I can. So auditioned for loads of drama schools and thankfully got into Mountview and just went from there. So at that point, I kind of followed quite a classic, in inverted commas, path into the industry. I say classic in inverted commas because obviously so many amazing performers don't go to drama school and, there are different ways into the industry. But for me at the time, that felt like the clearest path and ended up being the path I took.
So, before you sort of started the journey, was there a particular musical or a play that made you fall in love with it?
There's a few, and at different points in my life. I think when I was younger, I was absolutely obsessed with Annie.
Yeah.
I loved Annie. And I'm really bitter, Ryan, actually, because I would have been a perfect Annie when I was younger. I had bright ginger curly hair. I was really stagey. I was ready to go. But it never happened. So Annie and Joseph, I love Joseph. I think they're like the classic kind of musicals that are, I don't know, gateway drugs into musical theatre. And then as I was growing up, I loved Blood Brothers and Rent. Rent was a huge one.
Yeah.
And I think Rent for me was kind of the one that I was like desperate to perform as I was getting older. And I don't know, Rent was a big musical for me and still is. I just love Rent and Tick Tick Boom.
It's really interesting because I've done 6 of these interviews now. And 3 of those 6 that I've done, when I've asked that question, everybody has said it was Joseph, it was, and for me, it was Joseph. Joseph was the Southwest End, so I thought it's really weird the amount of similarities I've had with so many different people. And it's such a one thing I really enjoy doing these chats is not one story has been the same. Everybody has had a slightly different journey into the
Yeah.
industry. So when you got into Mountview then, what was that whole experience like? Were you the only wheelchair user on the course at the time?
Yeah, yeah, very
Yeah.
much so. And they had, I think, one maybe ambulatory wheelchair user on a directing course. But I was the first wheelchair user to go into a performance course strand.
Yeah.
And it was, I was a guinea pig a little bit, and knew I knew what I was signing up for essentially. And what I really liked about Mountview is that when I sent off my applications, I kind of contacted each drama school and was like, this is my deal. Like, do you have access? Do you have this? Do you have that? Because I'm sure you know, well, a lot of the drama schools didn't have any access information on their websites at the time. But even places that do have access information, you've got restaurants that say they're fully accessible, then you get there and they've got no toilet. So I always think it's
Yeah.
worth checking, especially when it's like, I'm going to be there for 3 years. So they were really receptive to that and kind of got in touch with me, and they were like, come and have a tour of the school and see if you think it's accessible before you audition. So that's what I did. I went along and checked it out. And that was kind of a big green flag for me, because it showed that they were willing to listen to me and change things. And they were, because it wasn't an overly accessible building, if I'm being totally honest. In my first term, I couldn't get up to the canteen or to the library or to certain rooms, and they put a lift in. Oh, this is when Mountview was at Wood Green, not in Peckham, which is like this most beautiful building, like very accessible now, which is amazing. But yeah, we had the musical theatre building where there wasn't an accessible toilet on our kind of floor, so I had to go up to the council offices upstairs to use the toilet. So I got to know those people up there, but they were really receptive, and we also adapted some of the the curriculum with especially dance, like dance assessments. We worked out how was I going to get assessed in tap. And we worked out, I had to learn everything kind of on my hands. So they almost were training me up to be able to teach tap.
Yeah.
Which was kind of cool. And I had one-on-one dance lessons with people that came in to kind of show me how to adapt different styles of dance, which was probably one of the most useful things I did there, because then when I went to auditions or was in rehearsal rooms doing dance or movement, I kind of knew how to adapt ballroom and stuff like that a little bit. Obviously there was a lot more to learn after I left, but that was really useful. And also singing, because I auditioned and I think I had to go back for a second recall just for singing, to make sure that I could support myself enough, for the training, from a sitting down position, I guess, and all that. So they were really thorough with that, and I had extra sessions every now and then to make sure that we were I was learning the best technique for me, and we got some really good tips and tricks. For instance, me and my Alexander technique teacher, we got an angled cushion made. So the chair I sit on, it's higher at the back and shorter at the lower at the front. So that my mind just went, whoa, what are the words? So it basically opens up my torso a little bit to help me support. And I've kind of taken that forward in all my new chairs. So that is kind of inbuilt. And don't get me wrong, that's kind of not ideal for a general sitting position day to day. So I kind of have lowered it a little bit over the years. But yeah, I still have the angled cushion that I could whack out if I needed to.
So before I just going back, before you went to drama school and started auditioning, did you face anybody that maybe said, pipe down, Amy, everybody wants to be a performer, let's focus on something a bit more realistic?
I definitely had people make comments about me going into performing, but it was never people close to me. I had, comments from people at school being like, she can't dance, she's in a wheelchair.
Yeah.
And when I, applied to lots of drama schools, I mainly applied for musical theatre, and then someone made a comment about me maybe not being suited to musical theatre
Yeah.
because of my wheelchair and everything. And it kind of affected my confidence to the point I changed them all to straight acting courses apart from
Yeah.
Mountview. That ended up being the only musical theatre course I kept, which ended up being the one I went to, which is funny. So yeah, I had those kind of comments, and it was always, a little bit tough, but I was quite fortunate because my parents and my family and close friends are amazing. They've always been incredibly supportive. They've been realistic, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
And they've never been pushy either. They've
No.
never kind of put pressure on me to, do certain things, but they were just so supportive. And I think my mum and dad in particular had the same mentality as me of like, well, if I don't try it and put everything in, I'm probably going to regret it down the line. So why not just give it a go? And if we get no's and we get knockbacks, we get that, but at least we tried.
It's such a difficult conversation to have, isn't it? 'Cause, we are getting better with access and inclusion, but you sort of, I feel like we should have started to see those steps about 10 years ago.
Yeah, 100%. And I think it's kind of frustrating because it was happening in a way, but not in the mainstream. And so for a lot of people, it wasn't ironically accessible to them. When I was growing up, there was obviously places like Grey Eye and Can Do Code that were doing a lot of amazing work, but I wasn't necessarily exposed to that because I wasn't aware of them for a long time. And then, I just wasn't aware of them, I guess, for a long time. So similar to you, when I started to work, it was almost like, oh, this is the first time I'm seeing a wheelchair user on stage in a Shakespeare show, and it's me doing it.
Yeah.
It was kind of trippy, and that's not me saying that there's no other wheelchair users that have done Shakespeare on stage, because obviously there have been, but it's when it's not accessible to you or you haven't seen it. I think that's why the proof is in the pudding about representation and pushing that forward, because even when you have a little bit of representation, that's not necessarily going to reach everyone. You need to kind of across the board and it to keep coming through to reach as many people as possible. Otherwise, you might be representing people, but those people aren't seeing the representation.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
How is it going to work?
For me, I have cerebral palsy and quadriplegic cerebral palsy, and I'm a full-time powerchair user as well. And the thing is, with cerebral palsy, it comes in so many different shapes and sizes and forms and all of that. I think in the media, especially disabilities and especially wheelchair users, Amy, there seems to be a bit of sob story music playing in the background, and when Ryan was 6 months, he was diagnosed with cerebral palsy, and you can hear the sad music in the background.
The violins.
Yeah. And that's the thing. I know it's not for everybody, but it's not a death sentence, is it?
No. And it's kind of shocking because I think that actually has improved over the years.
Yeah.
So the fact that we're still seeing it makes you remember how kind of bad it was however many years ago. When I left drama school, which was in 2013, all the parts I was going up for were kind of, they were victims. They were sad stories. And I found it really weird, hard, because I was everything I'm going into, I'm really angry about my disability. All these characters were just angry and thinking about their disability and a lot, and that didn't ring true for me. Not all of them. There were also some that were just villains, and their disability was their origin story. And there were also characters that just were, they weren't really characters. They were kind of a representation of disability and kind of nothing more. And I've spoken about it before, something I really struggled with when I first started in the industry was the kind of castings where they weren't really looking for a specific character. They were just looking for, I guess they thought, right, this new character is going to be disabled, and that's all we know. So we're going to get every disabled person in the UK to come in and audition,
Yeah.
and then so you're in a room, in a waiting room with every other disabled person in the UK, and you're like, I know nothing about this character. Like, all I know is that they're disabled in some way. So it feels like they're auditioning your disability and not you as an actor.
Yes.
Because, you know, as actors, you kind of want to go in knowing what the character is like that you're auditioning for. And I think all of that kind of spurred me on to, similar to you, like go into the like writing and everything to kind of make that change. And I say make that change, I don't mean it that sounds like a big statement, but I think it was just like, I might just have to write the characters that I want to play.
Yeah.
And that's probably why I started writing, really, as well.
So were you already in the writing process when you were at drama school, or did that sort of begin after you started auditioning for things?
The writing, it wasn't in my brain at all when I was at drama school. I loved writing when I was younger. I used to write all the time, and I still got loads of scripts from when I was younger. And some of them are hilarious and very sweet because I'm like, I don't know, 8 years old writing a little script for me and my cousins. But I decided that maybe I wasn't smart enough to go down that route because I missed a lot of school when I was growing up, and I think that made me, I don't know, it gave me a bit of a confidence knock when it came to sharing my work. And then I left drama school and was struggling to kind of be seen for certain jobs. I was really lucky because I got my agent straight from drama school, but we were just really struggling to get in the room and everything, and I was getting a bit frustrated. So I thought, right, I loved improv when I was at drama school, and I read a couple of books like Amy Poehler's book and Tina Fey's book, and they talk about improv, and they talk about how you know, they were auditioning for improv teams where there was only one spot for a woman on that team. And for them, they were like, wait, that's confusing because if we're improvising, we're making it up on the spot. So who's to say there's only one role for a woman? It didn't make sense. And that kind of struck me. So I thought, right, let's go down the improv route. So I started doing courses and classes in improv, which led to courses in sketch comedy, which led to, so I was kind of writing a little bit then. And then that turned into stand-up material. So I did a little bit of stand-up, and from that stand-up, I got asked to like do some talks about diversity and intersectionality and all things like that. So I started doing those talks, and then off the back of me doing a talk at this, I think I was on a panel at the South Bank Centre, and I got approached to write an essay for a book called Feminists Don't Wear Pink and Other Lies. And in that essay, I kind of wrote about my journey with improv and, you know, frustrations of the industry, I guess, and how that finding that source of creativity kind of changed me fundamentally, not only as like an actor, but also as a person. Like, I gained so much confidence going down that route. And yeah, it just helped me a lot. And I loved writing that essay, decided to write more essays. So started writing essays about different questions and different themes around being a disabled young woman. And then all those essays turned into a monologue, which turned into my first play. And then I sent that play off to anyone and everyone that would read it. And it did fortunately quite well, and we got it produced. And after that, it was kind of a snowball. I just loved writing and carried on and did as many courses and schemes as I could. And it was quite lucky, actually, because timing-wise, that happened in 2020. Which obviously wasn't a great year for many, many reasons, but I was, you know, at home without a job.
Yeah.
And so I could go on Zoom and do all of these schemes and courses. And it was like doing a little MA in writing, really, that year.
So can you remember your first, well, two questions really. Can you remember your first acting audition? And then can you remember your first acting job that you actually got?
Do you know what? Mine is weirdly the other way around. Because my first acting job I got off the back of my show reel, which I made in my third year of drama school. So I didn't actually audition for it. They just saw my show reel and got me in. And I had 2 lines on Stella.
Yes, I'm going to talk about that.
I was very excited because I love Ruth Jones.
Yeah.
And yeah, I went along and it was a bit intimidating because I'd literally just left drama school and hadn't really done that much TV stuff at drama school because I did musical theatre. We did a little bit, but not loads. So I had no idea what I was doing, if I'm perfectly honest. And I think that was pretty obvious. So yeah, I mean, I had a lovely time. Did that. And then I'm pretty sure my first audition might have been for a production of Sweeney Todd, like the
Wow.
ensemble in Sweeney Todd. I did not get it, which was quite fair because I remember being quite stressed when I went into that audition. I think it was I'm sure that was my first one. And yeah, I just remember learning loads of material for that audition and being asked to do like half a song and thinking, here we go.
There's nothing worse, is there?
No, but at least it prepared me for what's to come.
Yeah.
So yeah, they were my two firsts.
Yeah. And can you remember getting the phone call to say you got your first job and how that felt like?
Well, my first one would have been Stella, and I remember just being a little bit confused because I hadn't auditioned. So that was kind of an anomaly. And then I did after that I did workshops and readings and I did bits of TV and everything for a few years, but I think probably the call I most remember was my first theatre job, which was the Glass Menagerie at Nottingham Playhouse.
Wow, okay.
And yeah, I remember being buzzing when I got that call because I really wanted it. And I was surprised again because there was only one audition round for that job.
Yeah.
So I was kind of expecting to be asked to go and do a recall and everything. So when I got the call to say, I've got it, I was surprised. And also just really I just really wanted to do that play. And I was desperate to do theatre at that point because I hadn't really done much since I'd left drama school.
Did you ever find a time where you weren't getting things, and did that ever get too much, and did it ever get to a point where you wanted to give it up?
Yeah, I mean, there were probably 2 points in my life that I've really felt frustrated by the lack of opportunities. And I think what was most frustrating is it wasn't even the fact I was getting no's. I just wasn't even getting the opportunity to get the no's.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of actors feel that way and experience that for different reasons. I do think in my experience in the time I was coming into the industry, it felt like it was very much related to my disability and my wheelchair. The factor, and we were told that my agent was trying to get me seen for things and was being told, well, we can't have it because the role's not written for a wheelchair user. And he was like, but there's nothing in it that says she's not a wheelchair user.
Oh my god, don't get me started.
So we went through all of that, and I think the first 2 years out of drama school, first maybe 3 years actually, now I think about it, it was really quiet, and that's when I was kind of doing the odd workshop and the odd little bit of TV, but it was quite, worrying. And I was thinking, right, what is my life going to look like? Do I carry on with this and hope for the best? Or do I, start looking into other avenues? And I got part-time jobs, and I went full-time at an office actually for a while, and then went part-time when I got some acting work. But that saw me through selling door handles for 2 years. It was my uncle's business, so they were very kind to me, like got me in. So, and I loved that actually. It was really nice. So that was probably a point, and that's when I started doing improv because I was getting frustrated. Because also, oh my gosh, I just remembered at the time I was spending so much on singing lessons because I just come out of a musical theatre course, but I wasn't getting any music. I think that Sweeney Todd audition was pretty much the only musical theatre audition I had for like years. And I was like, why am I spending this much money on singing lessons? It's costing a fortune. So that's why I stopped singing lessons and I spent the money on improv courses instead. And fortunately it paid off. And then the only other time I think I really started to feel it was 2018, because I'd had a really exciting 2017 when I did a tour of Tommy, and then I did a show called Goth Weekend up at Stephen Joseph Theatre in Scarborough, which I loved, and we did it in Newcastle as well actually. And then I did a bit of filming for Mamma Mia, Here We Go Again. And it was like the kind of year where it was a beautiful patchwork of different jobs and it was really exciting. And then 2018 was quite quiet. I did a few little bits at the start and then it really slowed down. And I felt so much pressure on every audition that was coming through because I was like, I got to get it because it's few and far between. If I don't get it, then what's going to happen? Like, again, I took the opportunity to do loads of courses. I did stage combat. I did TV presenting. I can't remember. I think I did some more improv courses as well in that time. And I think that's when I tried stand-up as well, now I think about it. And yeah, I was really stressed. And when an audition came along for the RSC, I put so much pressure on it because I wanted it really badly. I love Shakespeare. I kind of knew I wanted to do more Shakespeare from when I was 18, 19.
Yeah.
And I hadn't had loads of opportunity. I'd done a little bit at the Globe. But it wasn't a long contract, so I knew I wanted to do more. So I threw everything into this audition. Like, I don't think I've ever been so prepared for an audition. I was preparing like I was going into rehearsals. And I remember after the recall, I went and sat in a coffee shop and I was with my dad. He'd come with me to the audition, thankfully, because I went to the wrong place at first and then like, I hot-footed it to the right place. And I just didn't speak to him. And because I was like, I'm really stressed and I need to decompress because I'm really hoping I did enough. Unfortunately, I got that job because I think if I hadn't, I would have gone to quite a, not a dark place, but I think I would have been having a lot of thoughts about, right, what is the right path forward for me? Like, what's the right decision for me as a person going forward in life?
I'm a big believer that everything happens for a reason, you know?
100%. I was thinking of the, I think it's Nora Ephron who says everything's copy. Like, use everything that happens to you, good and bad, and put it into your art kind of thing. I like that.
Yeah. So, can you remember the first professional musical that you were in? Because I obviously you were saying that you were struggling to get in the room for musicals. So, can you remember the first musical that you did get?
Yeah, I did Tommy, the tour of Tommy with Ramps on the Moon.
Yes.
And I played Sally Simpson in it. And it was one of my favourite jobs. It was so much fun. It was my first time working with a company where there were like other disabled people there.
Yeah.
And there were deaf actors and there were like non-disabled actors. Like, it was a real mix, and like it was very, very cool to have that experience. And I think it was kind of important for me to have that experience at that point, because up until then I'd kind of generally been the only one in the room, apart from a few workshops and readings, to be fair. Like, I had that experience, but they were kind of a few days or a week long, whereas this was going on tour with a group of people that all had, everyone was just really understanding of each other. And I think it really made a difference and made me personally more comfortable with speaking out about things that I need, because I learned from other people with more experience than me. And so it was really vital for that reason. It was also just like such a fun show. It was so cool. Like, there was the dance in it was amazing. And like, I loved doing a show where I had a physical track where I was going and doing all these dances and I was sweating loads. I remember my hands were absolutely in pieces because it was just such a physical show. But that's kind of what I'd been craving to do. Because I was like, I've just spent 3 years doing like dance training and I haven't been able to really properly use it. And then I got this opportunity. And also everyone was so lovely. Like, the cast and company were amazing, and I'm still really close with a lot of them. That was a really fun job with like really lovely people. And I'm trying to remember, I think that was my first time touring. I'm trying to think if I toured. Oh, no, I did tour before then with like plays, but yeah.
With touring, what was your experience like with gigs and things like that?
Not great. It was a learning curve for sure. I really struggled at the time, and things might have changed. I haven't been on tour since before. Oh no, I have been on tour, but it was like a nightly tour, so it was a bit different. But I haven't been on tour for a little while, and there were just not accessible digs at the time. Like everywhere I was looking, they were very few and far between. And I think I mainly used Airbnb and
Yeah.
hotels in the end because it was kind of my only option. I did find a few. There were some like theatre digs that were accessible, and like as
Yeah.
soon as I found them, I like snapped them up. But even there was one
Mm.
digs that I stayed in that I think it said it was accessible, or maybe they were like, we think it's accessible, but there's kind of a little step here, and my dad went up and built a ramp for it so I could use it. So
Oh,
even when it was kind of accessible, there were little points about it where it wasn't quite. Um, but yeah, I love touring. I'm very grateful that I have a car and that I drive because I can't lie. I think I would have, well, I it would have been really hard. I think I would have needed a PA for sure if I didn't have my car because I just wouldn't
yeah.
have been able to carry all the bags that I needed.
I find it really difficult getting to places because obviously I'm a full-time electric wheelchair user.
Yeah.
So I do need a PA. Um,
Yes.
but the great thing is about our R&D week, it is actually going to be where I am resident at, and it's going to be at the theatre that I actually opened. So that, I'm literally going to have to get up in the morning and go across the road. So that's going to be perfect.
Amazing. That's the dream. That's the dream. And do you know what? That's why like when at the RSC in Stratford upon Avon, all of the digs that they like have for their actors are
Yeah.
really close to the theatre, and it was kind of that experience. People would just roll out of bed, walk across the road, and they're like, "Morning." That was a dream. Yeah.
What was the backstage like in some of the touring theatres that you went to?
Generally quite good because I guess we only went to places where they knew that there was access. We
Mm.
had a few, like there was one theatre where to get down to the stage level there was like a lift, but one of the really slow lifts, and
Oh,
also it takes up the whole like of the steps of the stairs kind of thing. So when I'm using it, no one else can use it. And that was when I was doing one of the Shakespeare plays where everyone was in these huge dresses, so no one stood a chance like getting past that lift. And there were a few moments I think where I can't remember if it was in the dress rehearsal or in an actual performance where people were late to stage because we were using the lift. So we realised pretty quickly that as soon as I had to go down at a certain time and stay down in the wings, and it was fine because I just hung out with like all the dressers and stage
yeah.
management who were like mates. So that was okay. There were a few theatres on other tours where we turned up and the producers had really done their due diligence and been like, we need this, 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 and this. We need access to this. We need an accessible toilet here, la, 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 la. And some theatres hadn't quite understood the requirements. And we turn
Oh,
up and we actually had to cancel a few shows because we turned up and it just wasn't
really?
accessible. Yeah. And I really felt for the producers and the theatre company because they had genuinely tried. They'd asked everything,
Yeah.
but I think we were going to venues that had never had to really think about that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So we'd kind of thought about it, but only to a certain point. There was one theatre that we went to where the stage wasn't accessible, so they had to
Oh my
rethink last
god.
minute, and we did it on the floor and cleared some chairs. And I was kind of thinking, oh, this is a bit of a nightmare. And like, I don't think there was an accessible toilet backstage, so I had to go front of house to use it. And we'd cancelled some shows by this point, but I was just like, do you know what? It's possible to do it. We've come all this way. Let's just do the show.
Mm.
And it actually ended up being one of my favourite performances
Yeah.
because it
It's
was great.
funny. It's funny things like that, isn't it? I think sometimes things are sent to dryers, but I think if that was me, Amy, I am terrible. If there's like an accessibility
Yeah.
issue, I immediately think they're having to cancel the show because of me. Like it's my problem. And I know it's not, like, but
Yeah.
it's such a hard thing to deal with, isn't it?
It's really hard. And I think like I over the years for me, at the start of my career, I would have done anything and made it work and everything like that, and put myself in quite uncomfortable positions to, you know, keep the ball rolling. But I think now I just kind of think if we don't say things when things aren't right, then they're not going to change going forward.
Yeah.
And I do a lot of things, you know, that maybe aren't ideal, but I think I've definitely found the line for me, like the boundary that maybe I'm not happy to cross. Yeah, and it's really hard. It is really hard, and it was easier on that job, I guess, because that was the tour of the one woman show that I did. So I wasn't. It was quite a small team that was being affected, I guess. I think maybe I would have felt differently if it was like a huge company that had rocked up and, you know, we were doing like 8 shows in one venue. It was very much we did one show in each venue and moved on.
Yeah.
And again, the team were just thankfully incredibly understanding. And it is what it is. Do you know what I mean? If somewhere's not accessible, it's not accessible. And we'll make it work as much as we can, but it's just a point, isn't there?
Has there ever been a role that you wanted to audition for or go up for that you haven't because the venue where it is isn't accessible?
I'm trying to think of because I don't really know. I mean, there's shows that I would have loved to have been seen for, but I kind of knew I wouldn't because of access in theatres or like, you know, elements of the production and stuff like that. Like for instance, I love Avenue Q and I'd love to do Avenue Q, but I kind of knew that I probably wasn't going to get seen for it because of the, you know, the venue, and also it was, you know, it was using the staging from before mostly, and I knew that wasn't really accessible, like the set and everything like that. So I didn't really lose any sleep over it. So I think maybe that one. Well, there's definitely like parts that I'd love to do. There's quite a few Sondheim parts that I'd love to get my hands on. Whether that comes along at any point, who knows?
Yeah. I could see you being a very good Mama Rose in a few years.
Oh,
And Gypsy, yeah.
oh gosh, imagine Rose's turn. Yeah, that would be sick. Like that kind of part would be amazing. And like Mrs. Lovett in Sweeney Todd, and is it Mary and Merrily We Roll? Mary?
Yeah, I think
It's Mary and Merrily We Roll Along. Yeah, I did a number from Merrily We Roll Along in my showcase at Mount View. So I think ever since then I've just been like, come on. But who knows? I also feel like I have roles that I would love to play, but I get cautious about calling them dream roles because all of the dream roles that I've actually played weren't dream roles before, because they were new roles that I didn't know existed, or they came along as surprises. Like, I never thought I've got to play Sally Simpson in Tommy at some point, but that ended up being one of my favourite things I've, you know, done. So.
Yeah. So moving on a little bit to the writing side of things.
Yeah.
What was your biggest TV show that you've ever written for, and how did that come about?
Oh gosh. Well, I guess my first TV job was writing an episode of Ralph and Katie. For the BBC, and that came about because I was part of a few programs with the BBC at the time, like BBC Drama Room, which has now been renamed, and BBC Writers Access Group. So I was involved in that, and I think had got the brief through, and I sent off a pitch for it, and got on the writing team. There was we went into a writer's room, and I ended up writing the episode that I pitched with. I think that happened with a lot of us. A lot of us in the writers' room. We basically ended up writing what we originally pitched, obviously with some changes and new characters and everything. But that was like a dreamy job. Everyone was so lovely, and it was my first time seeing something I'd written go from a pitch to being broadcast on TV. And it was a massive learning curve for me. And I'm really grateful that I had that experience with that group of people, and still very like still working with a lot of the people that I work with on that job. And it was a really lovely first TV gig, if I'm being honest. It was like smooth sailing.
And had you seen the A word before?
I don't think I had. And I remember when the kind of they were looking for people to pitch to write an
Yeah.
episode for this for Ralph and Katie. I went away and watched all of the A Word, and I binge watched it in a very short amount of time. Like I very much fell in love with the characters and the world, and I've got a lot of people to watch it since because I'm just like it's a really lovely world with lovely characters to sit in for a while, and they deal with things I think incredibly well, and it's also just beautiful. Like the Lake District is so gorgeous. It's just a gorgeous show to watch as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, I hadn't. I did a lot of watching TV before sending that pitch off.
I've got to talk about the Little Big Things because it was such a big moment in time.
Yeah,
And it really was. And I think for me, to see such a disabled cast and an inclusive cast and Soho plays are just incredible.
yeah,
And I remember, so, Ed, I know Ed will be watching, so hey Ed. But I remember, I went with my friend Leanne, who was the original Tracy in Hairspray. The experience was incredible, and I didn't really know much, like I said earlier, didn't really know much about the story or anything about the theatre really. I think I'd read a little bit about Soho Play, but that was pretty much it. So where
yeah.
did that Little Big Things journey begin for you? Like how early on were you involved in it?
Yeah, I came on in the first workshop of it in, I think, October 2021, I think it was. No, that can't be right. Is that right? That might be
Yeah.
right. Yeah. And I think I had been suggested for the part by, I might be getting this wrong. This is what I understand to be true. But I think they got Emma Kingston to come in and record some demos for the Little Big Things, like before it was in a workshop, before
Yeah.
anything like that. Because I think she's a friend of Nick's or something. Nick, who wrote the music and the lyrics alongside Tommy. And Emma was being told about what the show was and found out that Agnes was a wheelchair user and this kind of character. And she was the year above me at Mountview and knew of me and said, "Oh, well, have you approached Amy Trigg for this? Or like she might be a good shout." And that's how they got me in. So like I owe a lot to Emma, really.
Wow.
And I think that's what happened. I might be totally wrong, but I'm going to say that's what happened. And so they asked me to go and do that first workshop, and I was incredibly nervous and anxious. And when I was at Mountview, I had hypnotherapy to deal with my self-confidence and anxiety, especially around like
Yes.
performing, like singing and stuff like that. And it was the first time in years that I whacked out those hypnotherapy tapes again because Anthony, who did my hypnotherapy, he recorded some sessions so I could have like top ups. And I was like quite anxious. I wasn't sure whether I was the right fit. I was just very stressed that week. But I loved it and threw myself into it and met some lovely people. And then thankfully kept being asked back to do more of the workshops. And there
Wow.
were a few workshops that I couldn't do a couple of them, I think, because of other work commitments. I think I was away on tour for one of them. And there was one where like, I turned up to the 2-week workshop that we were all very excited about. And on the first day, that's where I met Elle for the first time, who
Yeah.
went on to become like a very close friend of mine. And we had like a proper meet cute. Like we met each other in that rehearsal room, and it was very much like, "Oh, you." You're going to be my friend. And
Yeah.
we went and had a hot chocolate together after rehearsals. And I was like texting my mum afterwards being like, "I'm so excited for these 2 weeks. I feel really good. I feel more confident. I've just met someone who I think is going to be a really good friend." And then I got flu and ended up in hospital
Oh
on a
no.
drip and had to like pull out of the workshop on the second day, I think, second or third day. And so I was thinking, oh no, maybe that's my time with the Little Big Things over, because I was missing so much of it. But thankfully, they asked me back, and
Wow.
yeah, we went on to do the show.
So, going on from that, can you remember where Soho Place came into the picture? And when you first found out about it, were you aware of the theatre before it went in there? Like, what was the story behind that?
I can't remember exactly when I knew it was going to Soho Place. There were lots of talk. There was lots of talks throughout the workshops about there being a new theatre being built in the West End that was going to be accessible. And I didn't really know much about it. And in my head, it was going to be maybe a little bit outside of central London. I was thinking it might be. To be honest, I thought they were talking about the Troubadour for a while, like when they were
Yeah,
talking.
yeah.
And in my head, I was thinking, oh, that's a big space for like this show. But then, as time went on, I realised they were like, oh no, it's like a new theatre that's being built. And I think it probably wasn't until the final workshop where Nika Burns was involved, and I think we realised that it was Nika's new theatre. And Nika's a legend; like she's so cool, and she
Yeah.
is so supportive. And yeah, that was kind of when I realised it was going there. But for me, my first experience of Soho Place and realising actually what it was when I did a play there just before the Little Big Things called Medea. And so I'd performed in that space doing a Greek tragedy before we went and did the Little Big Things there. And I think I was doing Medea when we did the final workshop for the Little Big Things. So I kind of knew it was going to go into that space. It was pretty obvious that that was the accessible theatre that was being built.
Yeah. One thing that I think is extraordinary about the Little Big Things is that it opened in the West End straight away. I mean, yes,
Yeah.
it had lots of workshops and things like that, but normally with a brand new musical, it has an out of town tryout and things
Yeah.
like that. Was there a bit of you that felt like, oh God, we're opening this and we haven't tried it in front of it? Were you a bit self-conscious of the fact it hadn't had a run anywhere else before it had this big, massive West End opening?
Yes, yeah, I think there was for a lot of people, and I'm sure that spreads across cast, creatives, everyone involved. I kind of assumed we'd have an out of town tryout, and then it would move to the West End. But I think it was it was a big swing, and it obviously worked out and everything. And I think we'd done so many workshops that we really did understand the piece. I think anyone would be lying if they said, I guess with any new show, you always want more time than you've got. Even if
Yes.
you've been given 6 months rehearsals, you'd be like, oh, if only we had that extra month. So of course, like you always want more time than you get, but we were all really on it, and I think it kind of fueled us in a way, knowing that it was opening cold in the West End, to like just go in with big swings and go in proudly stating who we are and what the show is. So I think that kind of, in a way, helped us. For me, I was just nervous that people weren't going to know the show existed and that it would get
Yeah.
lost a little bit. And I think, when we opened, there was a huge buzz, and like those first few weeks of shows were incredible. Like, oh my gosh, the endorphins running through our bodies was just wild. And then there came a time when it was a little bit quieter, and people, I just don't think people knew this about the show or understood the show and what it was. When you describe the show to people, a lot of people are like, and that's a musical? So it was taking some convincing, but it was amazing because then really as soon as we did a performance on the Royal Variety Show and the album came out, suddenly everyone got it and understood it, and that's when we really kind of found our people that loved the show.
Yeah. When the Olivier nominations came out, were you aware that they were in, and were you aware that there were people in from the Oliviers and things like that? And if you weren't aware, were you kind of glad that you weren't aware? Because I think I'd have been a wreck if I'd have been.
Yeah, I hadn't really thought about it for a while, and then I think there was, I think someone knew that there were some people from the Oliviers in a certain show, and I remember thinking, oh no, oh gosh, like I need to like do an okay job at this. And that's kind of when the pressure settled in, I guess. But thankfully for me, that was quite near the end of our run. And so I didn't have too many weeks of that pressure. But I remember the last few weeks of the Little Big Things was pretty intense, because not only were we dealing with the emotions of coming to the end of like one of the most gorgeous projects that we'd been involved in, like it was life-changing. And we knew we were all going to miss each other. We were also filming the show for National Theatre at Home.
Yeah.
We were also all so ill. Like there was so much illness in that building towards the end of the run, especially just after Christmas. And I think the entire West End were feeling it. But for us, we were like, we've got to film the show and we've got to get to the end of the run. So then when we also became aware that the Olivier people were in watching and, you know, deciding whether we would get nominated for like Best New Musical or anything like that, it was quite a lot of pressure. Yeah, it was quite a lot.
Now, I remember hearing that it was going to be filmed, because I think it got announced that it was being filmed a few weeks before it was. And I remember hearing that it was being filmed, and obviously knowing that it was in the round and it was immersive, I was thinking, how the hell are they going to film this show? So did you ever have that feeling of how are they going to do this when you found out they were filming it?
Absolutely. I was very confused about how it was going to like work.
I'm glad it wasn't just me then.
Well, I kind of like knew it was going to be possible, but I was, because I'd done a couple of shows that had been filmed, and I remember when we filmed the 2 RSC shows, and that was like we recorded them, they went out live, and now you can watch them and everything like that. They were big cameras and they were everywhere. They were like in our faces. Like it was very obvious that they were there. And like a lot of there were parts of the audience that were kind of cornered off and everything. So in my head, I was thinking, how much are they going to have to corner off at Soho Place to like get all the cameras all around? So I think that's what I was thinking. Like, are we going to have an audience? Are we going to have like minimal audience? But that day when we filmed it was very, very exciting, because the team who filmed it were incredible. Like the quality of it just kind of blew our minds a little bit. And it was like a proper operation, and they absolutely smashed it. Like those of us who had doubts and were worried about how it was going to be done had nothing to worry about at all, and should have just trusted the process. But it was really cool. And again, you know, there's a lot of pressure when you know it's being filmed and everything. But it was a lot of fun. I'm glad we have it. Like we rewatched it. Me and Jordan, because Jordan, my husband, we met on the Little Big Things.
Yeah.
And we rewatched the show the other night just to reminisce, or the other week, just to reminisce. And it's so lovely having that memory.
Yeah, I think for me, from an accessibility point of view, I think it's amazing that it was filmed, because I would like to see it have another life and, you know, be in another theatre, but unfortunately, I know we are very limited to the amount of theatres that could go in, and I think from an accessibility point of view, you know, I know pro shots and bootleggers are very controversial, but personally, I'm all for pro shots, and so, because I think it's making theatre accessible for one, because there's so many people that love the theatre but just can't afford to go to the theatre. Or, you know, I'm a full-time electric wheelchair user, and I would love to go to Broadway and see all the shows on Broadway, but at the moment there isn't a single aeroplane that exists where a wheelchair user can sit in their wheelchair on an aeroplane. So those recordings are amazing for somebody like me, and I think it opens the door to people that either would have missed it anyway the first time, or just couldn't afford, or lived in another country, or, you know, I'm very big on these things, because I think it's making theatre accessible. I think one thing I would like in the future is for there to be a documentary about how her place was built and why
Yeah.
came around. I think that would be extraordinary. But moving on to your Olivier, because I think it's such a full circle moment. Obviously, you mentioned that you had your first job in Stella, and then Ruth Jones gave you your Olivier. So how did that feel, knowing that she gave you your first job, and then she was there at your biggest moment?
It was pretty cool, and like it was very funny because I had obviously all the Little Big Things lot were there in the audience, and then I also had my parents and some friends in watching, and I think quite a lot of them when Ruth Jones and Beverly Knight came out, a few of them said, well, we knew you had to win it because like it was Ruth Jones, it was like fate and stuff like that, which is very, very funny that they had that thought process because obviously that's not how it works. But it was a very cool moment. If I'm being honest, like it was all quite overwhelming that day. It was like one of the most exciting days ever, like of my life, really. Yeah, and I was just very overwhelmed. So it's kind of hard to remember exactly how I was feeling at certain points, to be honest.
Did you think you were going to win?
No, not at all. And like that's why I was huge. Ryan, I cannot believe I didn't prepare a speech because I look back at it and I can't believe I didn't talk about Henry and the Fraser family in that speech. And I also didn't name many people by name, kind of on purpose, because I was up there without a speech, not expecting to have won. I didn't want to start naming people and then forget someone.
Yeah.
So that was kind of a choice that I made in the moment. But I do kind of wish I'd prepared a speech and written something down so that I wouldn't have forgotten certain things. But at the same time, it is kind of funny. Like I've watched the speech back, and I think I kind of like it because you can tell that I was not expecting it, and it was just complete overwhelm. But also, it was a real roller coaster of emotions because that day we were so excited to all be back together because the show had shut for a while, like a month or over a month by that point, and we'd all stayed in touch. I think we were all, we were all still seeing each other, and obviously I was seeing Jordan every day because we lived together by that point. But we were so excited to perform together again that was the main adrenaline of the night. Like I remember finishing that number on stage with like all my mates doing this song from this show that we believed in so much, and I was like shaking. I could barely finish the final note of that song because I was just trying not to cry. And then afterwards, getting all ready together and getting glammed up and doing the green carpet together, and just again moments of being like, this is just fun. I'm just with my mates having the time of my life. Oh no, we did that before the performance actually. So, oh gosh, see, the day is just all a blur. But basically, when we went to take our seats for Act 2, which is when our categories were going to be announced, I'd kind of had the adrenaline already. So when I sat down, I was like, and then of course when they said my name, it was like an absolute bolt of electricity, and I was like, oh, here comes the adrenaline again. So it was a lot to deal with, but it was honestly just the best day for all those reasons. Just the shock of it, being together with all my mates and family and everyone. It was amazing. Jordan and I were talking about it actually the other day because we were like, it was kind of our wedding day was obviously like the best day of our lives and everything, but probably the day after that was Olivier's day because it was just such a buzz.
This is the thing. Like, obviously, you met Jordan on that job and things like that, and it changed your life in so many different ways. And do you ever sit there and think, did that really happen?
Yeah, totally. And I think I'm so glad that it happened when it did, because I felt like I was so ready and raring for a part like Agnes to come along. And I'm so grateful to the writers that they created that part, and that, you know, we workshopped it and made it right and made her nuanced and funny and everything. I was so proud of her, but I also think it was the right time in my life for me to play that character. I don't think I would have been able to play her in the way I did years before. And, you know, that just everything about that show was incredible, and I loved it. Even the days when we were knackered and going in to do two shows, and, you know, it was still a joy. It was still a joy. And getting the recognition at the Oliviers, like the nomination, but especially like winning, that was wild. I just felt really proud because I loved musical theatre all my life, and it's always played such a huge part in, I guess, how I move in the world and what I love. And when I decided to try it as a career, I wasn't sure I'd ever get fully accepted into mainstream musical theatre. And having that moment of being acknowledged and celebrated by an industry that I respected so much and loved so much, that meant a lot. And that was kind of it was a real moment for me where it was like, oh, it was worth it.
Yeah. Well, I think, because I'm very conscious that we've been talking for an hour, and
Oh yeah.
but I just want to say what a joy it's been to talk to you today, and thank you for being so honest, because I am very aware that I did throw some quite tough questions at you there, so thank you.
No, always. No, thank you for asking great questions as well.
And also, like I said earlier, when I saw you doing the film for the Olivier this year, I thought I need to get in contact with you because that was such a big moment. Because I remember when you won your Olivier, I think I tweeted you. I can't remember what it was I said. And I said, thank you for showing me that people like you and me can win an Olivier. And, you know, I really did mean that because that was such a big moment for me personally as well. So, yeah, thank you for opening the door for people like me and you. You know, it's a big thing.
Yeah, no, that's made me a bit emotional because, like, I know exactly what you mean, and it's kind of weird for me because I felt kind of like a similar way. Like, it just felt like a moment of being like, okay, this is possible, and going forward, hopefully, you know, we continue. And, you know, I'm not the first, and I'm kind of grateful that I'm not the first. You know, we had Ali Stroker in America winning the Tony for a musical, and Liz Carr winning an Olivier for a play, and I'm so for The Normal Heart, which was amazing. And yeah, I'm just so glad that we are moving forward, and it makes me emotional because and I just hope we keep moving forward and keep celebrating the moments.
Because I saw your Instagram story the other day when you said you've been to the opera. Honestly, I remember so many people have been going shopping or something, and somebody had said to me, "Oh, you'll be out playing football again anytime soon." I'm like, no, that's not how that works.
No, it's so weird. Some people, like, the comments are wild, like very wild. I have a lot of people as well who they've seen me in shows and then they've seen me afterwards and they're surprised because they thought the wheelchair was a prop. That's my favourite one. They're always like, "Oh, you're actually in a wheelchair." I'm like,
yeah. And I get people as well too. I say it's like they're talking to me like I'm a dog. It's like, "Hello, are you alright?" And that was why I loved the Little Big Thing, because there was a scene where it showed that. And I, you know, you alright? You're a clever boy, aren't you?
Yeah, or not even talking to you, talking to whoever you're with, like that really gets to me. Yeah.
I get all the time, Amy, all the time. Your mum and dad must be so proud of you considering.
Considering. Oh! Yeah.
Yeah, it's not great. But yeah, thank you so much. Honestly,
Thank you.
I've had such a joy talking to you. Thank you to the amazing Amy Trigg. That was a truly incredible conversation, and it was such an honour for me to have her talking to me so honestly and truthfully. See you next week with another incredible guest. Thank you to the amazing Leanne Jones for helping me design the logo for Ryan's Musical Rambles, and thank you to the phenomenal Scott McHurley for allowing me to use the instrumental backing track to making an entrance from Secret Sides of both the musical as the Ryan's Musical Rambles theme tune.